morning, friends. Thank you so much for coming back to school today. We are going to be doing some science, but also we're going to mix it in with a little bit of writing today. And I'm really excited because the writing and science that we're going to do is about something that we've been learning about already, which is water. And our writing that we're going to do isn't just a regular writing. We're not writing regular sentences, but you are going to help me write a poem. So we're going to be doing some stuff with water, we're going to be doing some stuff with poems, and it should be a great time. So by the end of this lesson, I want you friends to be able to say, I can use my 5 senses to write a poem. Now, I'm going to say that one more time. I can use my 5 senses to write a poem. Okay, so before we even start, who can remember what are our 5 senses? What are our 5 senses? Can you think of any? Can you think of what they do? One of our 5 senses are our eyes, our sense of sight. Our eyes help us see. All of our senses, what they do is they help us explore and understand the world around us. So our eyes help us see what's going on. Can you think of another one of our 5 senses? Our ears. You're listening to me talk right now, right? If you didn't have your ears, you wouldn't be able to hear me. So our ears can help us listen to the world around us. What else? Is there anything else on our face that can be considered one of our 5 senses? What about our nose? Our nose, what does our nose do? It helps us smell, right? So maybe sometimes you're about to eat and you can smell dinner cooking, or I know a lot of the times in the classroom you're able to smell popcorn when it was in the microwave, right? So our nose helps us smell the things going on around us. What else? There's one more thing on our face. You don't just smell popcorn, what else do? You eat it, right? So your mouth, your tongue, your sense of taste. You can taste different foods and things, right? That's another one of our 5 senses. Now we have one more that we have learned about. Can you remember what it is? It's not on our head like the other ones. Our sense of touch. We use our hands and our whole bodies to touch and feel things around us, right? We usually think about touch with our hands, but everywhere on our body can feel things. Like I'm leaning against this chair and I have a pillow here, and it's super soft when I lean against it, and I can feel that on my back. I can also touch my table and I can feel that it's hard, right? So those are all of our senses. And the reason that we're talking about our senses right now is because senses are really important when you are reading and writing poetry. Do you remember when we were talking about poetry in class? Poetry usually sounds a little sing-songy, and it really focuses on observing and looking at things around us and using our senses to experience the world. So, poets, the people who write, those authors of poetry, they pay really close attention to their senses and how they feel about different things. So that's what we are going to do. Do you remember what I said that we were going to write our poem about? We've been learning a lot about it in science. Water, right? So let's see. I don't really have something to put it on, but I think you'll be able to remember that we're writing it about water. So that's okay. I'll hold it up when we're going through the different things in our poem. But the other thing that I really like about poetry, which we didn't get to talk about too much in class, is that it can look like different shapes. So most of the time in our sentences, when we read stories, let's see, our sentences, they just go in straight lines, right? We read from left to right, and we have a sentence on each page. But the fun thing about poetry is you can kind of make it whatever shape you want to help the reader understand what you're writing about. So if we're writing about water, Why do you think that I drew this thing on our paper? What is this? It is a drop of water, a water drop, right? Maybe you can think of a raindrop, right? But it is one big drop of water. And I'm going to use this shape to model and show you friends how we can use our five senses to write about water in the shape of water. Now we know that water can look and feel about a lot of different things, right? We talked about how water can be really cold and really warm, and that can change how it looks and feels. But today, we're just going to be thinking about liquid water. Water that's like this. You can pour it, and you can play in it, you can swim in it, those types of things, okay? So we're thinking about this water. Okay. Why do you think that I'm using a blue marker today for this? A lot of the times when we want to show the reader something, or a lot of the big books that we read, they wrote the words in different colors and in different ways because it helps the reader really imagine it. And when you usually draw water in pictures and in your stories, what color do you usually use? Blue. So that's why I am using blue. Okay. Just like stories, poems need a title. A title is the name of our poem. And because our poem is about water, I'm just going to name it Water. So I'm going to go ahead and write water. Right up here. Water. And I'm even going to underline it because it's our title and it'll make it stand out a little bit more. Now, let's think about our five senses. The first thing I want you to think about, how does water feel? If you're washing your hands, how does it feel? Maybe it feels like different temperatures, hot and cold, but it always feels wet, right? That's one of the things that it feels like. So that's what I'm going to put. Water is wet. That's our first sentence. Water is wet. Now, what do I need at the end of my sentence? I just wrote a sentence, but is it done? No, I need a period there. Our sentence is over. Water is wet. Let's take a look at the water now. Use our eyes, our sense of sight. What words can you use to describe how the water looks? Is it actually blue? No, water isn't actually blue. Do you know what we call this color? If we can see through it, it's clear. So that's another thing that I'm going to put in our poem. Water is wet. Water is clear. Using our five senses, our sense of sight for this line. Water is clear. And what do I need at the end? A period. Okay. Let's use another one of our senses for water. Let's use our sense of smell. Does it smell like anything? It doesn't really have too much of a smell. But you know what I think of if I can smell water? It kind of smells clean to me. Now, clean isn't really a smell, but we usually use water to wash things. We wash our clothes, we wash ourselves. So water makes me think clean when I can smell it. So that's what I'm going to put. That's another fun thing about poetry. You can kind of experiment a little bit about what different things mean to you. So that's my next one. Water smells clean. I ran out of space here. Where do I go now in my poem? Down and to the left. Water smells clean. Okay. Water smells clean. Next sense I want us to think about. Let's think about our sense of hearing. Can we hear water? Can we hear water? Maybe we hear running water. Maybe we can hear people playing in water. What sound? Do you have a sound that you think of? Any words come to mind? I think in the very beginning of the year, when we read Mrs. Wishy Washy, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that they used these two words in that story that I'm thinking of. And those two words are splish, splash. Sometimes we like to use those sound words in our writing because instead of just saying that you can hear something, you can use a word to say exactly how it sounds. So I think of water, I think of splish, splash, like people playing in it. So that's what I'm going to write. Splish, splash. And it's so much fun to say those words. Go ahead and try. Splish, splash. I want the reader to be excited when they read it. So instead of a period, what should I do after writing splish, splash? I can put an exclamation mark, and that's going to make the reader excited and use a different voice when they read it. So I'm going to write splish, splash. Splish, splash. Those are those fun water noises. Now, it looks like I have a little bit more room. I can write one more thing. Let's write something about those words that we just wrote. Splish, splash. When you're playing in water, how do you feel when you're playing in it? Maybe happy, maybe excited. So I wouldn't really call water boring, but I might call it fun. So that could be a fun way to end our poem. Water is fun. And again, I want the reader to be excited when they read it, when they finish their poem. So I'm going to use those exclamation marks again. So I'm going to go ahead and write water is fun. Okay, now I'm really excited about this poem that you friends helped me write today. So I think we need to go ahead and read it. We used our 5 senses to write all of these sentences and all of these ideas about water. So you helped me do it today. You guys are able to do it on your own. Let's go ahead and read it. Here's our title, Water. Water is wet. Water is clear. Water smells clean. Splish, splash. Water is fun. That is an awesome poem. Now that you friends have seen me how to write it, have watched me, I bet you're able to find something around the house that you can write a poem about too. Even if you can't write down all of those words, you could probably still think about words to describe it, which is great practice. Now what you can go ahead and do is go ahead and take a look at the choice board, pick one way to practice what we were just doing here, and then I will meet you online and maybe we'll try and write another poem.